Welcome to the Blessing Builders. Each week we'll explore simple ways to bless your
We
family.
believe small words spoken with intention. Welcome back to the Blessing Builders, the podcast about speaking life, encouragement, and hope into the people around us every single day. In the first episode, we talked about how powerful our words are and how even a few simple sentences can shape someone's confidence, direction, and their future. But today, we're going to take it one step deeper. We're going to answer a really important question. What does it actually mean to bless someone? Because it's one of those phrases that we hear, but not always something we fully understand, or definitely we don't practice it intentionally.
Yeah, it does take intention. So it's more than just being nice. When people think about blessing someone, they often think about being polite or giving a compliment or just saying something that's kind. And that's part of it for sure, but blessing it's more intentional. I think like we just said, it's more intentional than just being nice. Being nice is reactive, but blessing someone is purposeful with intention. It's choosing your words in order to build someone up, to strengthen who they are, and even to speak life into their future, not just right now, but actually into their future. So a blessing isn't just saying, hey, nice job. Blessing someone sounds more like, I see something in you, and it's important enough that I'm going to call it out.
Yeah, so I think that it's easier to give somebody a compliment and notice their clothes or notice their new haircut, something like that, but that doesn't speak deeper into their soul, into their life. That is all outward.
Yeah.
Outward noticing, I guess you could say, but it's when you're aware, make yourself intentionally aware of what their identity is, who they really are inside, that's what the blessing.
Yeah, and that's
is.
really that's the most important part. That's speaking to their identity. That's really, if you think scripturally, let's just use Jacob as an example. When he was going in and blessing his 12 sons at the end of his life, he was speaking to who they were. And the words he said maybe not have felt like a blessing to all of them because there were some harsh words spoken over their life. But that's just so different than, I like your haircut. That's nice, but it's not speaking blessing. It's not speaking to their identity. It's not just speaking about their actions. It's really speaking about who they are, their character, their heart. And that's where the shift happens. It's most people encourage someone based on what they do rather than who they are. For example, I'm going to give you an example. So instead of saying, man, you did a great job on that project, you might be able to say, you are so dependable. I know we can count on you. And that's different. That's different than saying, thanks for helping. That's nice, but it's not speaking to them.
Right.
It's not speaking to their spirit, if you will.
Yeah, a character that they have, or just what's deeper within them. And it's good to start with a compliment, or, you need to start somewhere. So if that's the easiest thing for you to be able to speak out is complimenting somebody, then start there. But then start thinking about how to hold your tongue from just saying a simple compliment and thinking through what would be underlying, what would be a deeper thing that you could call out. I know sometimes if we say you're going to call somebody out on that, it sounds like a negative thing. But in this situation, it's a good thing. Call out what is good in them.
And I think that's because we're so used to calling out people's bad traits, if you will, rather than focusing on, and it really is it's really a mindset change, because it's easy to be like, I'm going to call out this poor behavior rather than I'm going to call out this amazing thing they just did. And it might not have even been that amazing. It might have been, if you have children, it might have been they picked up their toys, which is something that's expected of them anyways, just to help clean up around the house. But speaking into them of their work ethic or their attention to detail, any of those things, like speaking to their character and to their heart, that's the difference between just giving a compliment and blessing their character.
Yeah, I think in that situation with children, you can acknowledge that they cleaned up, Or you can say, I appreciate how you want to be more clean, more organized. Think about it a little deeper in what you actually want to speak into them also. Even if they're not typically a clean and organized person, you can still work at speaking that into them.
Because again, our words have power, and our words can build up those qualities that we want, or it can continue to tear down and maybe hinder those qualities that we would like to see in our children, our coworkers, our spouse, whatever.
So calling out their potential.
Yeah.
What is within them that you see them accomplishing, or not even accomplishing, just becoming in life.
Yeah. And that's powerful. Blessing someone, the thing that makes it powerful is you're not just speaking about where they are, you're actually able to speak into where they could be, where they're going,
who they can be.
Yeah, for sure. And I think oftentimes people have a hard time seeing, even within themselves, for me, within myself, my own potential. But when people start to speak that over me or over you, or we speak that over people in our lives, they begin to believe that maybe I am. Again, think back to the story from last week about the stewardess, not sure if she was going to do a good job. It was a brand new job. Speaking encouragement into her just put that in her mind, planted that seed of maybe I can do this. I have the potential to do that. Because again, we doubt ourselves so quickly. It's so easy to doubt ourselves and question if we're capable.
We have a story that happened to us when our second oldest boy was, I don't know, I feel like he was maybe just a toddler.
Yeah, he wasn't
3, maybe 4. Yeah. I'm not sure.
At the oldest, I would say 4.
But we were at the Fort Wayne Coliseum, which is a huge Coliseum venue. Yeah. They were doing a boat and RV show. Is that what was?
Actually, are you talking about Ben?
Oh no, that was the dog show. Yeah, that's right. We took the children to a dog show there, and all the children were little at the time, and so it was like, keeping them all gathered was a chore. But he was. I'm not sure if he was the youngest or if we had a baby also.
I think Sapphire was a baby. I think.
And so we had a lot to keep track of. And there were dogs everywhere. And of course, children were wanting to see these dogs and see these dogs and watch this show and go over here and see the grooming. And so it was just a lot for parents of young children to keep track of. And as we're walking by, he kind of lagged behind everyone else. And I'm like, come on, let's go. Keep up with everybody. And this little lady was sitting there. She was, I think, sitting there to watch a show, but she happened to notice our crew walking by, and she noticed our son, and she smiled, and all she said was, he's going to be big someday. And
she didn't mean his stature.
Right. Or, I was thinking today even about that and thought maybe she meant he's little now and hard to keep moving and keep contained, but he's going to grow up. He'll be older and bigger and easier to keep moving along. But what it really spoke to us was he is one of our, likes to be outside, likes to be busy, likes to be working, constantly moving on the go. And her words of he's going to be big someday was all of his activity was going to cause him to be big in life someday, whether it's be a strong leader, be a businessman, whatever it looks like, he's going to do great things.
She saw the potential.
Yes.
So I think we all understand potential energy versus energy in motion, kinetic energy. She saw his potential energy based on his kinetic energy right then. Like he was just, he did a lot. He was always doing a lot. And I think what she saw in him was that if he can harness that and he can apply it to something of importance, he'll be big someday. And that's what speaking a blessing over someone is. It's literally that.
Yeah. And she was a stranger. She didn't know us at all. And she just spoke that one sentence. And we have held on to that all these years, all 16 years of his life. Well, he was probably 3 or 4, so not quite that long. But we've held on to that, and we've spoken that story out loud over and over, and he's heard it. And so I think when we do that, when we speak it out loud, they start to think, I am going to be big someday.
Yeah,
I am
absolutely.
going to do great things. What do I need to do to be that kind of a person? And that's powerful. That's really powerful to our children, especially to us as parents, when we have all these little ones and we're just focused on keeping them alive and healthy. And we might not see their true potential deep inside of what each one possesses. And so sometimes just calling it out is helping the parents as well to see what their children really have in them.
Yeah, especially I don't know if you were frazzled in that moment, but I know you have experienced moments of frazzled motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to have heard that at that time,
yeah,
I mean, that spoke blessing over you as well.
Yeah, it did, because there's been oftentimes that there's been frustration with that child, and I will just say out loud, he's going to be big someday. He's going to be big someday. We just get through this.
Reminding
Yes,
yourself.
yes, this is all part of it.
Yeah, and that's really, I mean, that what you said earlier about it was just one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't some great oration that she came out. She just,
right.
He's going to be big someday. And that's important for us to remember, because we don't have to come up with the perfect words
Mm-hmm.
or the perfect storyline to speak a blessing over someone. It needs to be sincere. It requires us to be observant, to start paying attention. And that's something else that I don't know if we'll ever get to that in this podcast, but good listening is kind of a lost art. Active listening is really not. There's a lot of people who struggle with being an active listener. Mm-hmm. And that's not our challenge for today, but I would encourage you to really start to train yourself to be an active listener and to learn to ask questions to allow other people to talk, so you can start to observe these things that then you can speak blessing into their life. Mm-hmm. Be intentional. We'll come back to that over and over and over, the importance of being intentional in blessing.
Because it's not a natural thing. It's not a natural response for us. As parents, we can be quick to yell. We can be quick to just get after a child for what they're doing. Even as a married couple, it's not just about being intentional with our children. As a married couple, we can be quick to think that they're thinking the worst, or there's multiple scenarios that go along with that. And it really takes stopping and thinking and deciding, just choosing that you're going to respond differently. Yeah. Think through it.
And so, that makes me think, if you have children that are maybe rowdy, rather than speaking, you're noisy, you're rowdy, you're out of control, rather than speaking that over them, find times that you can speak, man, you're really calm right now. This is wonderful. Any opportunity that you get to speak words of not just affirmation, but words of calling out good character that you see and good character that you would like them to exhibit. Yeah. So why is it that most people don't do this? Why is it such a struggle for people to speak blessing? Do you have any insights on that? Like, what makes it so challenging? If it's so simple to speak life and blessing into others, why don't more people do it? Because honestly, it's rare. At least I think so. Maybe I'm running in the wrong circles, but I don't think so. I just think it's rare. And I think there's a couple of reasons. Did you want to read something, or?
Well, go ahead.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, we're busy and we don't slow down enough to notice. We're just moving so fast all the time. We're often focused on ourselves or our career or our hobbies, whatever. We're focused on, I'm focused on me. And blessing people requires awareness. Again, observation, just being observant and paying attention to what's going on around us. Another thing is, I think we just overthink. Again, we believe that we have to have all the perfect words, and we're going to be uncomfortable. What if it sounds weird? What if I say something wrong? So we say nothing, because that seems to be a better option than making ourselves feel uncomfortable. Like, pride is a very real thing in a lot of aspects of our life. And choosing to speak blessing over somebody can also be squashed by pride for the reasons I just mentioned. I think maybe another reason is we underestimate the impact of the words that we speak. We don't realize how much weight our words carry.
It goes back to that scripture that we talked about in the last episode, which we probably should just read it every time we do a podcast. But
it's like our podcast verse.
Yes, that the power of
life
and death is in our tongue, and that's so true. It really can bring life, and it can bring death. I was going to read Psalm 141:3. It says, "O Lord, place a guard on my mouth, protect the opening of my lips." And for me, when you asked the question, I thought of my brain doesn't think fast enough because my brain is thinking about so many other things. So what I mean by that is my brain doesn't think fast enough to be able to observe and look at what's deeper, to be able to get that out. Instead, I don't guard my tongue. I just let it go. And that's usually, quick correction, quick acknowledgement of something else that is not a deeper issue. So for me, I think that's I feel like something needs taken care of right now. And so I just say what comes to mind and take care of it instead of guarding my tongue and thinking through what would be a better thing to say.
So, man, that's so big and powerful. How do we then become the person who blesses others? How do we make that mindset shift? Because that's what it's a mindset shift, again, a paradigm shift. I think one thing that's maybe helped us is start walking into your day with the question of, who can I intentionally bless today? Again, it goes back to intentionality all the time. I think if we had a key word for this Blessing Builders podcast, I think it would be that. I think it would be intentionality. It's not random. It's not if the moment happens. It's got to be on purpose. It has to be that we live in such a way that we begin to notice people more. And again, this is just intentional observation, learning to ask questions. We have to begin to speak up more, even if it's uncomfortable. Because I'm trying to think back if I've ever received a compliment or a blessing where I thought that was awkward. I mean, usually I'm just like, I'm so taken aback and like, well, wow, thanks. Those words are kind. But when we're so stuck on ourselves, the pride of I might look foolish, that stops us from doing those things. But over time, it will become a part of who you are. It will be second nature, I think is maybe the way to say it.
We had some friends over the weekend that were dealing with some major health issues with their child. And, that's a good time to pray for somebody, but then speak out what needs to change in them. If it's a bad headache, speak out for the headache to go, speak out for the headache for the whatever's going on to cause the pain there to just calm and be at peace. Speaking out what needs to happen is that futuristic, what you said earlier, as far as speaking what you want the future to look like.
How you want it to look.
There's so many different areas that you can do that in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Challenge for the week.
What is it?
Okay. Challenge for this week. Bless 3 people intentionally. Again, I think last week we had find 3 people, bless them. Again, this week, because it needs to become habit. That's how things become second nature for us, is by continuing to strengthen that muscle.
Yeah.
So bless 3 people intentionally, not just compliments, but they need to be real. They need to be specific encouragement.
Look for the deeper of their identity, who they are.
So you're speaking things to their character, maybe to their consistency, to their potential. And when you're speaking this blessing, say it clearly. It doesn't have to be a perfect moment. Just go for it. You just have to go for it and say it. And if it comes out messy, clean it up later if you need to.
It makes me think of how, as parents, we can often call out the bad parts of our children, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're such a monster. Oh, you're so messy. You're so dirty. All of those things that just rolls off because children are that a lot.
Yeah.
But instead shifting that to I don't know, some of the examples that we've done with our own children as far as not being a monster.
Yeah, that's one.
Like you're so well behaved. You know, if you go someplace and they are exhibiting good behavior, they are exhibiting calmness, they are exhibiting a happy heart. We would use that a lot with our older children when they were little. Do you have a happy heart? You need to have a happy heart.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to see in your children, not the tantrums, not the, fits.
I don't think we ever allowed someone to speak monster over our children.
No.
We would quickly squelch that and speak the words of life over them that we wanted them to hear and to exemplify. Because that's a real thing. If you consistently are speaking, you're a monster, kids will live up to that. And this isn't a parenting podcast. I know we refer to our children a lot, and because that's like, we're parents. So that's kind of natural. But I coached high school basketball for a number of years. It works if you're a coach. You can speak encouragement and life and the traits that you want from your athletes into this. Still, our one daughter does powerlifting competitions, and speaking the things that we want from her into her before, during, and after her competitions in a positive mindset. So again, your workplace, if you're a manager or if you're well, you don't have to be a manager. If you work with people, there's opportunity and need to speak blessing over them. Who doesn't want a better associate where you work, right? I mean, if you continue to speak death and cursing over them because maybe they're not the ideal person to work with, they're going to continue to be not the ideal person to work with. But if you purpose and are intentional about speaking positivity and life and appreciation when you're able to, that will change. It has the ability to change the entire dynamic of that work environment also.
It goes for marriages too.
Absolutely.
We have examples of that, of Jonathan not being the best leader
for sure
at one stage in our marriage.
The best. I was a terrible leader.
And when he came, there's a whole story to that, but which we'll probably get to that eventually.
I would guess.
But me recognizing when he did lead well, recognizing when he did do the things that I appreciated, and vice versa, when he recognizes in me the things that he appreciates seeing, that encourages to continue walking in that way.
Absolutely. All right, let's put a blessing on these people for the week. Okay. So may your words carry intention and life, and may you see the value in others clearly, and may you have the courage to speak it out loud. Well, that brings us to the end. So thanks for listening to our Blessing Builders podcast. And if this episode helped you understand what it really means to bless someone, share it. Share it with someone who encourages others. Share it with someone who would like to grow more. Share it with someone that you would like them to grow more. And if you haven't already, please follow the podcast. That way you don't miss what's coming up next. We're going to try to have these out every week, but make sure you
build on it each week.
That was good. I see what you did there. So next episode, we're talking about why encouragement is so rare. Is that right? And why it matters more than we think, because it's so important and we put so little emphasis and so little value on it. So until then, keep speaking life, keep encouraging others, keep building blessings.
Thanks for joining us.